This week on the podcast, we have a really fun conversation with Christa Jones. And one of the reasons why I love this conversation so much is because there are a lot of TPT sellers out there who have a very similar dilemma in that Christa has two niches. Okay. She has a niche that's really taken off for her, and she has a niche that she's really passionate about. Now, don't get me wrong, she's passionate about both of these niches, but she wants to know where should she focus and concentrate her efforts in order to best meet her goals moving forward. But then also she has that kind of dilemma of, how do I market this? How do I move forward with marketing when I have two different distinct audiences where there is some overlap, but there is definitely some distinction there. And this is a conversation that I've had many times with many different TPT sellers who either have two passions or they are kind of like Christa, where something has taken off and they've run into an unexpected market and they're wondering, where should I focus my efforts? Because I obviously cannot do both, because doing both is not in the cards for them right now. So cannot wait for you guys to meet Christa. Hey, Christa, how are you?
Hi, Lauren. I'm great today. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to chat with you about your store. You've got a really interesting TPT journey so far, even though it's been short. There's a lot of things that have happened. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear your story, and I'm excited to chat with you today. So why don't you just start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got started in the world of TPT and what that's looked like so far.
Absolutely. So my name is Christa, and I taught for 10 years in a Title I, Title III elementary school. I taught general music there, and I'm very passionate about teaching elementary general music, but I did just step out of the classroom this school year. Well, I finished in May, and then this is my first year at home. I had a series of health issues after getting COVID, and then I had just a really hard school year, and I also have a 2-year-old. And so this has actually been a blessing in disguise. It's been much better for our family, even though it wasn't where I thought I would be. It's been really great. So I'm focusing now on providing professional development for elementary music teachers and on my TPT store. So I just started my TPT store in April of 2023, this past April, and I did a lot of research prior to starting. So I think that sometimes doing research like that can be a form of procrastination. And there was definitely some of that happening. I was scared to get started, but I'm thankful now that I took the time to figure out what SEO is and what all these different things are, because I set myself up to succeed pretty quickly. So I was very fortunate when I started. I have had some pretty quick success, and some of that I mean, since this is a business podcast, I'll say it was partly because of my own preparation and partly luck. Lightning struck in a really big way, and I just was really, really lucky that happened.
Okay, so talk to me about this, because I was reading through your form. We had everyone who applied fill out a form, and there's a lot that kind of happened. So first, start me with, because you said part of it was business strategies, which you had in place, which I would agree that probably that's 99% of where your success has come from. And I don't want to dismiss that hard work for that 1% of luck that you got that, worked really well in your favor. But talk to me about what kind of marketing were you doing and are you doing? And tell me a little bit about what that's looked like, because it hasn't just been put the resources up and, oh my gosh, somebody found my resource and put it on television kind of thing, right? So tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah. So prior to starting, I did a lot of research in just SEO and making sure I was doing my keyword research. So I should back up and explain a little bit more about my shop. My shop is called Enharmonic Education. And I started my shop with the plan that I would be selling to music teachers. And then along the way, I would be adding products that would serve all teachers, classroom management things. I am an expert in my field, but I'm also really good at classroom management and positive behavior support. So I know that I have a lot to offer for general teachers as well. It kind of flip-flopped though. I've had more sales from general teachers. So here's what happened. I posted my first product, I think it was April 10th. And about a week and a half later, I got my first sale. I made $2.40. Yay. It was amazing. I was so happy. And then just a few weeks later, another teacher posted one of my products on TikTok. And this teacher is not a TPT seller. There are a lot of teacher influencers out there on TikTok and on Instagram who aren't like us, trying to serve an audience, but also trying to sell and support our business. But she just gave a great ad for one of my products. It's a music bingo game, and it went viral on TikTok. That's where the luck happened. I don't know her. Well, I do now. We're like internet besties now, but I didn't at the time know her. And so she posted it on there and it just exploded. And I think at the time I had maybe 6 products in my shop, like not a lot yet. And I still don't have that much yet because I've been focusing on marketing. So when that happened, first of all, that's the luck. That's the lightning that just struck. When that happened, I immediately made a TikTok account. Now, I'm like a TikTok user, have been for many years, but I had never been on the platform as a creator. So I made an account so I could respond to comments and answer questions. People were asking questions in her comments, so I could respond back to them. And I put a few of my products on my own TikTok page. And from there, I thankfully had an email list started as well. So that was one thing that I'm glad I did my research about, because before I posted my first product, I had my lead magnet for my email list. And so you can imagine, like, I was just sitting on the couch and all of a sudden my phone was ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. And I was like, what? I turned to my husband and I was like, what is happening? Somebody, and this is going to make me sound so old, I said, somebody must have posted this on a Facebook group or on a blog or something. I can't imagine what else it could have been. And it was TikTok, of course. And so, yeah, one of the people who signed up for my email list, I reached out to her. I emailed her back and I said, hey, I know this is a weird question, but how did you find my product? And so she led me to the TikTok video, and that was how I found it.
So it kind of was a little bit of almost like somebody put you on television, probably more effective to be on TikTok than to be on television nowadays. But that's really neat. And I love that. I do want to say, though, that, a lot of times we listen to stories like this and we go like, oh, well, that was a random fluke thing, luck thing that's only going to happen to them. Like that wouldn't necessarily happen to me. But I think that it's really important to keep in mind that TikToker never would have found your product had you not spent the time on SEO, had you not spent the time to create the high quality resource that they would feel proud to promote, especially because they're not getting anything out of it, which is kind of, it's one of the reasons why I think that a lot of influencers, teacher influencers, both on Instagram and both on TikTok, really don't promote a whole lot of other people's TPT products. A lot of times they'll just create their own and then promote that. We'll talk about that later on, because I think there's a really unique strategy for you in all of this when growing your business. It says a lot about everything that you put into place ahead of time, especially the fact that you already had your email marketing going. Everything was ready to go. And had it not been, do you think that momentum would have continued? Or do you think it would have been just like well, that product sold really well for a little while kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the product that sold was a summer music bingo game. And so that's why, talk about a pain point. So I should say, this TikToker, I'm going to shout her out. Her name is Missy Bennett, at Mrs. Bennett Has Class. She's hilarious and amazing. So everyone go follow her. But she started by saying, teachers, it's the last week of school and you just turned in your Chromebooks and you need something to do. Here's this product. Like, I couldn't have written a better ad myself. And I'm going to base a lot of my future ads on what she just did there. But thankfully, so it was summer music bingo. Thankfully, I had I did have a few other products, even though it was a brand new seller. I had back to school music bingo and a couple other things, a creative movement game available so that people could shop a little bit while they were at it. And because I had my email list set up, that was so great, because as I add products, these people have already bought from me. They already know that, oh man, that saved my life last May. And so they trust me, they know me, and I'm able to keep the sales going and keep the ball rolling.
I love that. I think that's the critical piece in all of this, where I think sometimes people will have one resource that will go viral and then they're like, okay, how do I duplicate this? Like, how do I keep this going? You already had the pieces in place to make sure that it continued. And I want to point something else out that you said, was that you already had, even though it was a new product line, you already had at least a couple of other resources that would work really well alongside of it, or another resource in that product line, which is one of the reasons why I say it's really important to not just skip around when you're creating something and dabble a little in this, dabble a little in that, because had you not had that back to school bingo ready to go, or maybe, some of those other similar resources that they would actually be interested in, you would have been a little bit up a creek with no paddle, or you would have had to try really, really fast to try to create those resources very quickly. So it was really nice that you already had those inside of your library. So let's talk about 2024. When you're looking ahead at 2024 and you're saying, okay, this is where I want to be in my business, this is what I want to accomplish, What does that look like for you?
So it's easiest for me to state my goals in terms of revenue, but I also know that that's dangerous because I can't actually control a number that comes through my sales. I can control what I do to reach that number, but just at a basic level, I'll say it in terms of revenue. So I started in April, and at the end of October, I reached the first milestone on TPT. I can't believe it, but it was really amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I want to keep that ball rolling. In 2024, I guess I have like a bare minimum goal, which is still a big goal, and then like a way out there goal. My bare minimum goal is I want to replace my teacher salary, which I'm already replacing my take-home pay because I'm not paying for the childcare I was paying for before.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a huge, just amazing thing. But I would like to, like the number of what my salary was, I want to replace that. And then my big goal is I want to surpass the second milestone in 2024.
Absolutely.
Might as well shoot for the stars.
Yes, you can do it. Of course. I mean, there's just what, like a $55,000 difference between the first milestone and the second milestone, I think. So
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can do that for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about hurdles. What's getting in your way of that? Like when you look at, okay, I have these goals. These are the things that I want to put in place. These are the things I want to do. What makes you think like, okay, but I have to overcome this obstacle in order to accomplish these things? Or I'm a little bit worried about this happening in the process. Talk to me about that.
So I have a little bit of an identity crisis here because I thought that my shop was going to look one way and then eventually, have other pieces in it. And I've kind of taken a turn because I found a product line that's working for me. It's only one product line, but it's that's really working.
Yeah.
I might as well keep going with it. And so I'm focusing my attention more on general population teachers, everybody, all teachers. But my expertise and also where I have like pages and pages of lists of ideas is in the music teacher niche. My big challenge right now is I don't know how to serve both populations in terms of marketing. So I feel like right now I have one email list and even my lead magnet is for general population. It's just a classroom management thing. So I would like some guidance on if I should be creating a second email list or how I should do this because I do also want to create products for music teachers. And I have a few products on my site for just music teachers. So do I focus my attention where it's working right now and then also do the like gradual bit by bit build up of doing the blog and creating products for music teachers?
It's a lot, but you're not alone. Like I've heard this conundrum many times. I'm a big fan of following the money. Like, because if you have monetary goals, that's kind of what's driving you, which I'm the same way. Like, I've got to put it in money terms. What are my monetary goals for the year? And then it's like, now what are the goals that are going to support me in the process of getting to those monetary goals? Yeah. Not everybody does it that way. I totally get it, but it works for me. And it'd probably work for you. It just kind of depends on how your brain is wired. In terms of monetary goals, if I'm wanting to hit a certain number, then I really want to follow that money and I want to kind of lean into where that is. At the same time, you said something at the very beginning of our conversation, which was that the second piece of your business is providing professional development to elementary music teachers. If that's something that you are wanting to do, you are going to have to build that audience. So then it becomes really tricky. It's like, okay, well, do I build two separate audiences where there's some overlap in between? Because there's going to be overlap. Like obviously classroom management inside the elementary music classroom is huge because there are so many students. There are just so many. My gut instinct is to tell you, pick one to work on this year. Either choose, I'm going to build out the elementary music audience and in order to diversify my income stream and really work on selling professional development to elementary music teachers and sell elementary music products because that's where I have the majority of my ideas, or to say, okay, this is where my money is coming from. I'm going to lean into this and I'm going to follow this for a year. It doesn't mean that you can't do both, but one of them is going to have to be your primary. A big believer that you can have two niches, but I think that it's a lot to take on all at once, especially if your kids are at home and you're a stay-at-home mom, or even if you're teaching full-time in the classroom, because it's like,
it's a little bit paralyzing even.
Yeah.
It's like, because what do I do next?
Yeah. Because if I act gen ed today and then tomorrow I'm start talking specifically on TikTok or Instagram or wherever specifically to music teachers, well, these gen ed people are going to be like, wait a second, who is this chick? What is she promoting? Is this really somebody that I want to follow? And it kind of becomes a very difficult act to balance. And then it's also paralyzing in terms of like, well, what kind of content do I put out? If this were me, I can tell you that I would absolutely lean into the gen ed population, especially because you mentioned something inside of your form that you didn't mention here was that in 2024, one of the things that you're going to be doing is you're going to be partnering with other teacher influencers to help grow your market in that space. Well, I'm assuming those teacher influencers are not music teachers. So if I'm partnering with people and they're more in the gen ed space, I'm going to get more bang for my buck marketing gen ed resources. What you can also do is you can set aside some time for 2024 to say, okay, I really don't want to abandon this music teacher niche because this is my area of expertise. I feel like this is really where I shine. And hello, you can make a lot of good money in professional development. Like, absolutely. One of the things that you can do there is you can focus on long form content for that. And then eventually kind of build out into something else. So that would be, you know, maybe having a blog for elementary music teachers and then also having a separate lead magnet to collect emails for those. And when you're collecting emails for them, one of the things that you can do is you can put like, are you in Flowdesk, ConvertKit? Like what's your platform?
I'm on MailChimp right now, but I'm making preparations to switch to ConvertKit.
Okay, so in ConvertKit for sure, like just go ahead and set it up in ConvertKit. There's a spot where you can have them put more information about themselves and it'll tag them. So I can give them like a checkbox or a drop-down menu and say, I'm interested in receiving emails about, and they can check that box that says classroom management, elementary music resources, right? So if they check both boxes, they are immediately put on both lists. Mm-hmm. Okay. If they just check the one box about music resources, they're not put on the classroom management list. And then you're able to kind of like segment and you have that overlapping audience. Once you have that overlapping audience, that's going to give you a really good idea of how big is this overlapping audience. Okay. I can also do the same thing for my intake form for the gen ed. There's also a chance that these people are interested in music resources. You can do something like, I teach blank, and you can have them check the box for what they teach. If they teach middle school, high school, just elementary classroom, like just whatever, you don't have to do anything with those tags, right? You just know they're a gen ed teacher. But if they check that music teacher box, they can go into your music teacher list. You can start to look at where is that overlap? How big is that overlap? And if it's a small overlap, that can kind of help to direct your marketing to say, okay, probably not going to be worth it for me to try to be both things to both groups of people, right? Just best to keep them separate. If you're noticing that you have a really large overlap, then that's going to be a good indicator for you that, hey, it's probably not going to hurt me to market both on the same platform or to talk about both on the same platform, right? So just kind of watching the data and seeing what it tells you over the course of 2024, but then focusing your short-term marketing efforts on the resources and the market that's bringing in the most money, focusing maybe a little bit of your time on some of those long-term efforts for what you would ultimately like to do until that starts to get to a point where you're like, okay, now it's worth my time to maybe have 2 Instagrams or maybe have 2 TikToks, or maybe I can overlap them both because my audience is large enough and I have a better feel for what it is that I'm doing now, and just kind of giving it a little bit of time and space to grow. Or maybe you say like, I don't think I need TikTok for this. I don't think I need to be an influencer for this particular niche. I've got plenty of people who are on my email list. I can collaborate with other music teachers and I can just grow it in that way and not have to show up and be 2 different personalities, so to speak, every day.
Really great advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do something real quick. Let's take a look at your store because I have a couple of ideas for something that I would like to pitch to you and just say like, you know, if this were me, I would do this. But I also want to take a look at your store first because I know that you've got 2 niches, so we could talk about some ways to maybe organize custom categories if you haven't already done that. Kind of transition is that going to look like for your store when you're selling 2 different types of resources within the same store? And how can we focus on branding that business so it's creating one cohesive brand for the teacher who's coming in and they're not like turned off because, oh, I thought this was, classroom management resources, or wait a second, I thought this was music teacher resources, like that kind of thing. So if you're listening on podcast, obviously you can't see the store. So I would encourage you to go watch this on YouTube. You'll find a link to this look at her store inside of the description. And we will come back and we will do a little bit of a recap so that you can know what we talked about. Okay. Let me share my screen. So we are here with Christa Jones, and I'm so excited to take a look at her store. She has kind of a unique situation. So this isn't going to be your typical like TPT store audit. What's unique about Christa is that she has essentially 2 different niches. There's some overlap between the 2 niches, but we're going to be looking at some things that she can do in her store to hopefully set her up to distinguish between the 2 unique niches that she has and the 2 unique audiences that she serves, but create some cohesiveness with her brand. So first of all, you've got your gen ed audience and we've got your music teacher audience, and we have this credible name, Inharmonic Education, which I think at first glance you think music, obviously, and it is music, but I would say also that this would lend itself really well to focusing on or kind of bringing in that overall theme of these 2 being in harmony with each other, right? So it's classroom management and it's music resources for the elementary music teacher.
Can I tell you more about the name?
Please.
Okay, so I sort of did that on purpose because I knew starting off that I would have some products for general population teachers, and I thought the majority would be for music teachers. That's not where the money is leading me right now. But if you are a music person, is a music theory term. And so what it means is it's a term for when one note might have 2 different names. So for example, if anybody happens to know where, say, middle C is on a piano keyboard, the black key that's right above middle C is called C sharp. But that same note, that same key could also be called D flat because it's a half step lower than the note right next to it, which is D. So for a music person, immediately you know that's a music theory term. And if you're not a music person, I think it just sounds nice. I wanted to make it general enough for everybody, but also give a little wink to the music teachers.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I think it's perfect for what you're doing and who you're serving. I think it's a great name. So I would actually come up with a tagline for your business, something that kind of explains your brand, bringing harmony to the music classroom and the gen ed space through blank types of resources or something like that. Any way that you can phrase that to let the gen ed teacher who's come there know they're in the right place, and to let the music teacher who's come there know that they are also in the right place. So I would try to focus on maybe coming up with a little bit of a tagline. You can put that right here inside of your banner, and that's going to really help to encourage those follows. Because if you have somebody come in, they may come in for a particular resource. Maybe they're led there through social media, maybe through a blog post. But if they get there and they feel like all the advertisements, the banners, etc., they're all leading them to purchase a product that they would not usually be interested in, they're probably going to be less likely to follow your store. So I want to let them know I'm creating resources for you when they come to your store, right? When they come to your store, we need for them to know that you're creating resources specifically for them. And that's going to give them motivation to follow your store. So giving them a little brand statement, something that's going to pull all of that together for them. The next thing that I would say is I wouldn't necessarily say that you have competing colors, because I think the 2 can work together, and I can see you've got the yellow and the black right here. They may both be a part of your branding colors, but make sure that you're weaving both of those in with each other, right? So that I don't just have like purple and pink here, black and yellow here, especially with the 2 banners being gifts and moving. It's a lot to try to figure out where the eye should focus and where it should land in your store. I don't necessarily think that it's bad to have 2 gifts playing, but I would just make sure that they're a little bit more in harmony with one another so that they're not competing with each other. The other thing is when we're talking about which niche are we really going to focus on, those are going to be the products that we're going to put as our featured item. So you've got music bingo, a creative movement game, a music bingo music. Once you've chosen, and we've talked about this before, and if you want to hear the full coaching call with Christa, all about how to kind of navigate this having two niches, then you can find the link to that down inside of the description. But in terms of which direction you're going to go, I would say focus on where the majority of your traffic is coming from. So if you believe the majority of your traffic is going to be coming from gen ed teachers, I would make most of your featured items specifically for gen ed teachers. The other thing that I would say is you have 16 products, but you have a lot of custom categories. And I'm sure that you probably set this up because you're like, yeah, I've got a lot of resources that I want to create, Lauren, which is totally fine, you know? So I just went ahead and made all of those custom categories, but I would take a quick look at your custom categories and see, is there a spot for me to kind of help that gen ed teacher find what they're looking for, and then a spot to help that music teacher find specifically what they're looking for. And what that might look like for a little while is as you're building your library with primarily gen ed products for a little bit, to kind of consolidate all of your music resources and put them in one spot. Or what you can do is, I've seen where people will create like a custom category. It's basically like a ghost category, or it'll be like have the little music note and say like all music resources. And then underneath it, kind of like this for music, this for music, this for music. And they kind of have like lines in between. So to kind of like break up the different categories so they can tell everything within that short, section is all music. And then everything above it would be for, say, the gen ed teacher. So you can kind of separate them like that. But what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't have the generic, these are Halloween resources, where when I click on Halloween, I get Halloween music resources, but not necessarily any gen ed Halloween resources, or they're mixed in together. I would do something to kind of separate that out so it makes it a little bit easier for the person who's coming in. So I could have music resources and then seasonal or holiday music resources underneath that, where they could click on the season. And then up here, I would have seasonal resources as well, or holiday resources. I don't necessarily think that you have to break up every single holiday. I think just having holiday resources is going to be fine until you have a lot of holiday resources for them to sift through. But right now, my suspicion is that if I click on Halloween, I'm definitely, I just have two resources, right? So it's not going to go past the first page. Until we're going past the first page, I would say like, no need to break that up. So if I can click on seasonal items and everything's there on that page, like Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's, like all of that stuff is all there on page one, probably not really a reason for me to break those up just yet. So then that's pretty much it. So I'd break your categories up so that it makes it easier for those niches to find what they're looking for. Otherwise, they're going to be like, oh, Halloween. And they click on it and they're like, wait, these are just music activities. And this is not something I can use. And it kind of leads them to get a little bit more discouraged. Whereas if I have it clearly defined, like, oh, this is my area, right, for the gen ed teacher, and this is my area for that music teacher, then we're not going to be disappointed. But again, we only have 16 products right now, so we don't need a lot of categories. Just a few is fine. Now, other than that, I think your resources look really good. I'm not seeing any major red flags. The only thing that I would say is that for sure you're over tagging grade levels, which really stinks, but I definitely would not tag more than 4 grade levels. So I would go through and I would just say not grade specific if it's not grade specific. And then that way you're not getting penalized in search for over tagging grade levels. So that's the only thing that's really sticking out to me initially. But if you do think like, oh, hey, this is definitely more geared towards elementary, just tag elementary. But if it's truly a product that will work all grade levels, just put not grade specific. And I think that you'll be just fine with that.
Yeah, it's been helpful seeing people's reviews come in because I get so much good feedback from the reviews and people who are saying grade levels that I didn't expect might be using some of these resources. I used this with my 10th grade chemistry class randomly one day because it was after testing or something, or my middle schoolers loved this, or my 5th graders loved this. The other thing with the reviews that's been so incredible is I get my keywords from the reviews now. So when I first started, I was probably saying like fun music activity or something like that with the bingo game specifically. And then people were saying in the reviews, this was perfect for Fun Friday. I use this for indoor recess. And so now I'll take those keywords, put them at the very beginning of my description. And sometimes where it's applicable, I'll even put it in the title. I
Yeah.
try not to change my titles a lot, but once I had some of that information, I did change some of my titles to match what people were actually searching for based on what they told me in the reviews.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great way to pull it into your marketing as well. You know, sifting through your reviews and seeing how people are using your resources can give you some really great ideas for how to share with others how they're using your resources. And you can even say things like, here's how one of our teachers is using this particular resource in her classroom, and you can share their story. But I love the idea of going in and looking for those keywords and seeing like, okay, Fun Fridays, that's a keyword that I might not have ever thought of before, but that teachers are clearly looking for. Well, I think that your store looks great overall, just those few things that we talked about, but that's pretty much it. And again, if you want to hear the full coaching call, because we have a lot more to talk about, then make sure and check out the link down inside of the description. Okay, so we're back. We took a look at your store. We talked about some changes that you could make to your banner with coming up with a cohesive brand statement to kind of pull everything together so that when gen ed teachers come in and when these music teachers come in, they both feel like they're in the right place. We also talked about taking a look at your custom categories and making sure and just sort it out so that if somebody clicks on, say, like a Halloween category, they're a gen ed teacher, they're not disappointed like, oh, well, there's not anything there for me. It's just for music teachers. So maybe kind of creating a break in your custom categories where you have a section that's specifically for music teachers, and then you have a section that's specifically for gen ed teachers to kind of help them navigate through your store a little bit easier and make it more efficient for them to find products to put inside of their cart. The other thing that we talked about was just taking a look at your banners and your featured items and making sure that you're highlighting items inside of your store that are going to best align with where the majority of your traffic is coming from, which in your case is going to be the gen ed teachers right now. So again, if you want to see the full look inside of her store, you can find a link to that down inside of the description. I definitely encourage you to watch that. But let's talk about a couple of other things for your business. I wouldn't normally say what I'm about to say to like the average person, but if getting into the teacher influencer space, getting into the TikTok world, getting into all of that is high on your list for 2024, I have a suggestion for you, especially because you're brand new and you don't have a lot of products. So it would not cost you a lot of money to get this up and going. If it were me, I would create a Shopify store and put these resources in your own store and have an affiliate marketing program. You're shaking your head like you've thought about this before. Have you thought about this before?
I have thought about this before, and
Yeah.
I listened to your podcast about starting a Shopify store, and I've done other research. I'm really glad that you brought this up. Let me tell you what my fear is. My fear is that I know when teachers buy off of TPT, they know what they're getting into. There's a certain level of understanding. Teachers understand that it's a digital product, which I know I can make that clear in my description on the Shopify store too, or on an Etsy store or whatever. But teachers understand I'm going to have to print this off on my own. That's my only hesitation about Shopify or Etsy or anything else, which I'm not planning on doing Etsy, but just as an example, I'm just nervous about it. Tell me more.
Okay, so I can tell you that by now I've had thousands of dollars in transactions on Shopify just within the last like 8 weeks or so. Not once has anyone been confused. So for sure, like you absolutely want to make sure they're making sure that it's a digital product. But the other thing is, you can put disclaimers on your website for sure. You're going to be covered inside of your terms of use, inside of your billing, all of that. But they're also not paying for shipping. Like there's no shipping. As soon as they're done, it's a download. I think that in general, this is what teachers expect in the market. Like they're not expecting to, when was the last time that you as a teacher went to purchase a physical product for your classroom from someplace other than like Amazon or a music store?
Or a conference or something.
Yeah. I would not worry about that. But if you are worried about it, you could make that as part of your marketing. I wouldn't do a big part of your marketing because I don't think that it's going to be an issue for you. But you could say something like, hey, the great thing about this is that you just print this off and it's ready to go for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no waiting. Like you don't have to wait for this to get, like just make it a part of your sales pitch. I think that's very few people are even going to want that physical product because again, they have to wait for it. Yeah, I would not worry about that at all. But I would go ahead and do that, set up that affiliate marketing program. I think that it would help substantially with getting other influencers to market your resources because they're going to be getting some sort of a kickback from it. And you're not having to pay them up front for anything. You're not having to do anything like that. There's not very many people doing this right now, at least not that I'm seeing. There's not a lot of people. So there's not a lot of tit for tat. It's like I said, again, it's like you have your resources on Teachers Pay Teachers. Most of the time, those influencers will start to create their own little resources to put on TPT, or they just don't really spend a lot of time advertising TPT products because they're not going to make any money from it. And so they might do it once in a blue moon. But yeah, if you have a way to give them a kickback, like, why not? Absolutely.
I think that's a great idea. I'm really glad you brought that up. It has crossed my mind, but hearing you say that,
yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think it'll take you very long. You've got 16 products in your store. Just move those over. Even if you just wanted to do just to move the Gen Ed products over, right? Even if you just wanted to start with that, then it wouldn't take you hardly any time at all to get that Shopify store up and running. I know you've watched the podcast before, you've listened to the podcast before, Tyra Frederick's Shopify course. I think it's less than $100. Like, it'll get you up and running like really fast, like help you, okay, where do I put the digital downloads? How do I do all of that? It'll get you up and running pretty quickly. You can watch some YouTube videos, like whatever you want to do. I would do that now before you start all of your marketing, but then also before you create all of those new resources, and then it's a chore to get everything on. Any other questions for me? Because we've talked about that hurdle of working within those two niches.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the surprise niche of just Gen Ed teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clear from my own experience in the classroom and my teacher friends and what I see online, teachers need classroom management strategies. And sometimes that's as simple as a fun brain break. Like, I'll be the class party lady.
Absolutely.
Because I know we all know that it's more than just, a fun thing to do in school. We know that this is the carrot that is getting us through our afternoons so that kids can stay motivated in the classroom. There is a need to help teachers and provide those resources too. So I'm really excited about the surprise turn that my shop is taking.
Yeah, for sure. And that can always bleed over into that PD. That can be one of the first professional developments that you do is classroom management in the elementary music classroom, like just kind of pulling all of that together. And then you're hitting a pretty wide section of your audience, or it could just be classroom management. And then there's an additional little workshop for elementary or for music teachers to help them like further incorporate those strategies within their classroom. And then you're, pardon the expression, like killing two birds with one stone. Like that way you're able to like hit the widest piece of your audience, but then still really appeal to those teachers who are just like you, roughing it in the elementary music space. So yeah.
And I really appreciate your time today and you helping me through some of this, because I feel like, not to say that my journey is special or anything, but I do feel like I'm on a little bit of a different journey than most sellers that I hear about. And I hear the advice over and over again, which is great advice. Don't do anything else until you make 50 products. Don't do anything else until you make 100 products. And I think that's true most of the time, except that I happen to find a product line that's working. And so that's why I've been focusing on marketing for this one or a couple of different product lines, because it's working for me.
Yeah.
So I think product creation is going to be a big part of 2024 for me. But I haven't been able to take the same advice that I hear a lot of the time for other sellers, because I'm just on a little bit of a different journey, which has been very exciting and very fun.
Absolutely. And you're not alone. There are a lot of teachers who, I've talked to in the past where they started creating resources for one specific niche, and then all of a sudden they got moved to another grade or they got moved to another subject. And they're like, okay, how do I pull these two worlds together when I want to create resources for, say, STEM, but I was originally just in math? Like, how do I start to pull everything together? And it is hard. It is different. And it makes it difficult to feel like, how do I apply this advice in a way that's actually relevant to my own store and to my own journey? So I thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story, because I think that a lot of people are going to really benefit from hearing that. Even just people who have two passions or two loves in the teaching industry and kind of want to pursue both, I think it's going to be really helpful to them too. So thank you so much, Christa.
Thank you.
So before we hop off, tell me, where can listeners find you if they want to connect with you?
On TPT, you can find me at nharmonic education. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Harmonic Education. If you're looking for teacher professional development, you can see past conferences and workshops that I've done. Mostly, I'm geared towards elementary music teachers for my professional development at this time, but that is at ChristaJonesMusic.com. And my name is spelled CHRISTA, ChristaJonesMusic.com.
Awesome. And we'll link to all of those down inside of the description. Thank you so much for being here, Christa.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for all of your help.
Thanks so much for being here. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like it and subscribe because we have a lot of coaching calls that we have done this year. They're all incredible and all talking about unique challenges that different TPT sellers face, and also some of the unique incredible things that they're doing really, really well that we can learn from them. So make sure that you are subscribing to this channel and that you like this video so that more people can find it. And I'm going to see you in the next video.